Hi y'all, Biohack here. We've got a new fusion announced in Raid Shadow Legends coming, I think, next week. And so in this video, I wanted to basically go over his kit and give you my thoughts on the champion and whether or not I think he's going to be useful. He is an arena-focused champion mostly, but we'll talk about that in a second. First, let's go ahead and check out his visuals. I honestly think this champion looks pretty sweet, actually. I love this kind of like scythe-looking staff thing and all the like purple aura. Someone in my Discord said he reminds them of Gul'dan, and I can definitely see that. He's got a lot of Gul'dan vibes to him. He is an Ogryn, but he does have kind of like orcish vibes as well. I think he looks really, really cool in terms of the visuals. The kit, on the other hand, is a little more complicated, so let's go over it and see what we think. First things first, on his A1, he attacks one enemy, books up to 100% chance of placing a block buffs and stealing one buff from the enemy. That block buffs goes on for 2 turns. This could be maybe useful in Hydra. It's a targeted block buff, so that makes it a little less good because you kind of want it on AoE to deal with the poison cloud. But of course, the main thing you need the block buffs for is keeping it up on the Head of Wrath. So he could be a good way to deal with the Head of Wrath, especially if you bring in someone like Mighty Uko, for example, who has the block buffs but is a little inconsistent. He could maybe be a second option in there for you as well. But overall, I don't think he's an amazing Hydra champion, so just keep that in mind. The next ability is his attacks all enemies. So it's an attack, has 75% chance, we'll just say books up to 100%, of stripping all the buffs and landing Weaken. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. This ability would have been really, really good in the meta like 2 years ago, or even a year and a half ago, before Polymorph came into the game and before Stoneskin came into the game. Stripping buffs and putting up things like Weaken was super, super important. Madame Saris was like an amazing champion in the arena, the people's champion, they used to call her. Because she was an epic and she was so good in arena for her ability to strip buffs and put up a decreased defense and decreased attack, and then this guy would do Weaken instead, but that's just not the meta. Polymorph really killed that, and Stoneskin didn't help either. So it's an okay ability, but it's just a very outdated one in the current live arena or just any arena meta. Okay, so the next ability is a little more interesting. It gives you an increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, and then it gives you an increased defense for your champions with higher defense than attack, and an increased attack for champions with higher attack than defense. So basically, this is going to buff the damage of your nukers, be it whether they defense nukers or attack-based nukers. I think this ability is interesting for sure. I think it might be the only ability that gives you both increased accuracy and increased defense on the same skill. So if we were ever in a scenario where we got a defense-based champion that brought bombs to the table, something like this could be really interesting. But it does feel a little bit lacking. I feel like if this had a small turn meter boost on it, it would be really, really good. But I'm hesitant about abilities like this that just, I don't know, don't bring too much else to the table. That being said, it could be kind of interesting. It's not the worst thing in the world. I do kind of like champions that can bring in things like buff strips, but also have another primary use. So if you have him as your team, in your team for the increased accuracy and the increased defense and increased attack, and then he has the buff strip as a secondary, it's kind of like, okay, he did his main job, and now if he buff strips and he gets polymorphed, it's like annoying, but it's not like, oh, the whole team is going to fall apart because we were relying on that buff strip. So I don't know, that brings a little bit more nuance to his kit. The thing that really makes him a unique champion is his passive here. It's whenever an enemy is revived, he instantly activates the Earth Puncture. That is this ability right here that does the buff strip and the weaken. And then if they're from the Lizardmen, it can't be resisted, which is fine. There's not that many champions from the Lizardmen in the PvP arena meta. Maybe Pythion, and sometimes you see Sulfurion show up as like a turn meter booster with the ability to one-shot Stoneskin thanks to his HP burn activation. But those are really the only 2 that are Lizardmen. I think this is more just kind of like a champion flavoring. This ability is interesting, but honestly, like, there's so many ways to counter Revive in the game right now, and Revive is still very, very strong and really important, so more ways to counter Revive is good, but I just hesitate to think that this is enough in his kit to really make him come in and do anything super important in the meta. I mean, I don't know. It's nice, and here's the thing: if this ability smacks, if it's a really hard hitting HP based nuke, then that's a different story, right? If they revive and he immediately one shots everyone, then that okay, that's starting to look like a real ability. But just buff stripping and putting on the weaken is a little more, I don't know. In particular, like it's so susceptible to polymorph still, and a lot of times it's like the weaken and the buff strips are not really the end of the world. Like, honestly, if this was a decrease attack instead of a weaken, it might even be better. Because what really you need to, like, what I'm worried about when I kill an enemy and then they get revived is I'm worried about them coming back and killing my nukers before my nukers get to take a turn. Like, you imagine a Sifi revive, and it revives them with 100% turn meter. So I need that champion. I need some way to counter that champion before it can take its turn and nuke me down. If they revive a Georgid with 100% turn meter and he just one-shots my team, it doesn't matter that he was buff stripped. It doesn't matter that he put weaken. Like, I need some way to actually like prevent him from killing my team. Now, if it's a team that doesn't revive with as much turn meter, like say a Duchess or a Pythion or something, which revive your champions like with more health and things, but don't give them the full turn meter boosts, then your nukers might be able to get around. So, if for example you kill them with your nukers, and then a 2-turn Stone Skin Duchess revives them, but all you have is A1 abilities, well, he could be really nice to buff strip off that veil so that then you could kill, or I said A1, I meant single target. You could kill the nukers that got revived with your single target abilities instead of having them be stuck under that perfect veil. If it's, say, a Mighty Uko that revives them with the block damage, the fact that you could strip that block damage up so you can kill the nukers again could be really valuable. So there is some interesting stuff you can play around with him here, but I'm just not sure if he brings enough to justify that. I don't know. My initial thoughts when I saw this champion is I was like, man, he kind of sucks. I don't like him very much. And I'm like, but I also feel like he's got a unique kit. And so I need to like take my time with him and think about him more. And he's grown on me a little bit as I've gone through that process and started to think about different ways that you can use him. But I definitely think he's more of like a B tier champion. I don't think he's a must do fusion by any stretch. I think he's fairly weak in PvE. I mean, sure, he'll help new people. Actually, to be honest, the increased accuracy can be really, really nice for progression. I used Yoshi the Drunkard a lot when I was doing my Doom Tower progression years ago because he brings the increased accuracy and increased attack, which was really nice for getting things like HP burn on the Frost Spider, who has huge amounts of resistance. That being said, we've had so much stat bloat over the last few years with things like Ascensions and things that I really don't feel like the increased accuracy is as needed as it used to be. And we also have lots of champions that can do it that are strong, like Razzlevarg and I don't know. There's a bunch of them, right? Even Timothy the Fool we got last week brings it, although I don't know if it didn't necessarily fill the same role, but either way, it's just not quite as important as it used to be. So yeah, I think he'd be okay for a progression champion, but not the best. He's not the worst. He's kind of whatever. I feel like you don't need buff strip that much in progression in this game. I guess, yeah, I mean, you kind of can use it in Hydra, but really you want to bring in block buffs, which he does. Most of the bosses don't really need buff strip. Most of the waves don't really need buff strip. There's ways to get around it. So I don't know. He'll be useful for people brand new, but I don't think he's going to be in any end game PvE teams really. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this champion. He's probably a B tier. I'm definitely going to do the fusion because I don't see any reason not to do fusions at this point. I'm kind of just doing everything until, at the very least, I get my faction guardians completely full. And, with champions like this, like I said, if they release a really strong defensive-based bomb champion, I'm going to be kicking myself if I don't have a champion that can give me increased accuracy and increased defense in the same ability. So I'll go for him for that, but I don't think that by any stretch this is a must-do fusion. I don't think he's going to be super meta, although I feel like there's probably ways to make him work. Like he's not going to be completely useless, but he's not going to be, he's not going to be my go-to in any teams right now. Maybe that'll change in the future. He's definitely a champion. I think that we're gonna think of new ways to use him effectively. He's a little bit not straightforward in terms of like what kind of teams I'd want to bring him in, but that's my thoughts on this guy. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.